Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again by the main man himself, Michael Angelillo. Good morning, Michael. How are we feeling, man?
Feeling good. Some big things happening in sports recently. Couple of drafts. The NBA Finals came to an end since our last show. The Phillies have been through some ups and downs since our last show, but in their most recent iteration was a wonderful game last night, dismantling the Braves. But still a lot to talk about there. So yeah, excited.
I am excited as well, man. Still, a lot going on. We could not do the show last week because my power went out and the internet got in my area, and apparently I learned that when your power goes out, and even if it comes back on, and there's other people in your neighborhood that have without power, that Comcast can't like restore your cable until everyone has power in the area first.
It's very frustrating, John. I have to
Well,
admit.
I believe the term for it is called back asswards.
Yes, but
Yeah. So, with that being said, listen, we're back, man. We're back.
we are back. Yeah,
We are back. I want to talk about the hockey team first because that's the more recent thing. And honestly, I'm going to very controversial take here, maybe, but I think what the Flyers done this past week has been more exciting than what the Sixers have done this past week.
sure. I would agree. I think what's the difference, I guess, is that the Sixers are kind of their hands are still kind of tied. Like it's just tied to the health of their stars, and it just kind of will be until they're not here anymore. So they're doing, I think, as much as they can around it. And I think they're actually like suddenly the Sixers' future outlook is not nearly as bleak as it once looked, I will say. But on the other hand, the Flyers have definitely taken some strides into just getting them out of the basement and putting a respectable product back on the ice. There's still some things that they got to do if they want to be maybe low end, very low end playoff contenders, but I think that they're definitely taking some strides and getting some skill on the top six of their forward front. And this actually started before the draft. So go ahead.
So, yeah, the big trade news that came out this week was that the Flyers had acquired Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks for the 45th overall pick, a fourth round pick, and Ryan Paling. And Michael, I liked Ryan Paling when he was here. I thought he was a very good
He's
like
a great
fourth
bottom six,
line
fourth line
center.
center. Yeah.
Definitely like one of those like glue guys a playoff team would be interested in to have on their team if like their guy gets hurt or whatever. Like a team, any of these like contending teams, he would have been fit. He would have fit very well in Florida.
Yeah,
You
we talked a lot about like how the Flyers have a bottom six that's ready to compete at a high level, and like Ryan Paling was a big reason of that. That's a fourth line center that plays really well defensively, can play on the penalty kill, but he's also not just some sort of lug. Like he's a pretty solid skater, and he's got some good skill that every now and again he makes some plays on the offensive end that makes you kind of whoa, like that was what a shot from Paling. Like he, you know, has some pretty nasty snipes, has some pretty good hands, especially for a fourth liner. There's value in Ryan Paling for sure. Like he's not. It's not that they traded nobody. However, when you're trading your fourth line center, one of like 4 second round picks and a fourth round pick for a guy that has a lot of talent, a lot of skill, and there's a chance that he really, if you fully realize his potential, that's a number one center for you. Like, it's a risk worth taking where the risk is not very high, like at all.
Well, this is like me, well, like Michael. You look at the Florida Panthers, uh, the reigning Stanley Cup champions. This is what they. This is the type of move that they would make that have put them in the position that they are in now. What they did, like how they got Sam Reinhart.
Mm-hmm.
And Reinhart kind of what like had this a similar career trajectory as Trevor Zegras. Underachieved, moved a little bit. Moved to Florida, realized his potential, and like, look,
Mm-hmm.
now you have Matvey Michkov. You want to put him on the same line as Michkov. Guess what? Uh, Matvey Michkov was racked up like 65 points this year, playing like half the season, like 8 minutes a game because his, old geezer stuck in the mud coach wouldn't play him. Like Michael, he could have had like 85 points on that garbage team he played for.
If he was playing like 20 minutes a game, absolutely, man.
And as a
Absolutely.
rookie,
Yeah. Yeah, he's special. So when you get a guy like Zegras, like I actually I can't get enough of this trade because it's virtually zero risk, actually. Like, honestly, I will hand up, there is no risk in this move. Like, they have 4 second-round picks. They traded one of them away, and then it's a fourth rounder, and then a fourth line center. Like, if Trevor Zegras sucks here and like his attitude never gets better and he just never realizes any of his potential, and even if he's hurt all the time, like it just won't matter. It'll truly be one of those trades where it's like, you know what are you going to do? You tried. You took a swing on a center that has a lot of talent and wants to be a center, and if it doesn't work out, it's just straight up not a big deal. It does not matter even in the slightest bit. But if he is a positive asset, like they're hoping, and you might have a top, 6 center in the future, one of your top two lines is center for the future. Like that's an awesome trade. Then everyone's gonna be like, "Wow, what a robbery from the Flyers!" And it's true. It doesn't even matter who Anaheim takes at 45, because again, the Flyers have the Flyers have 36, they have 40, and they have 48. It just doesn't matter. So I think I'm giving that a really, really good trade rating, even without even seeing Zegras playing, just because of what it meant to actually make the move and what it actually is costing
And
you. It's just not costing
yeah,
you
it's
much.
like when the Eagles got AJ Brown, they had 3 first-round picks. You're like, okay, spend one of them on getting
Yeah,
maybe
they trade like the middle one for uh, you know, a top
a,
5 receiver
a
in the
wide
sport.
receiver, a wide receiver who, like on some lists, is now considered the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, like it's
Which I don't
just
think. Which that's like, come on, man. Like, and he's still like 27 years old. Like, come on,
he's
dude.
incredible. I mean, he's
Like, yeah. So,
regardless. It's just I really loved that move. And I think it shows that you just can't trust at all what Briere says in his press conferences, because he's not going to give you a minuscule of information. Like genuinely, all they say, oh, we might use all 3 picks, and we're whatever. And then all of a sudden the Zegers trade, which like there were links to it. There were fans that were linking it a lot. There were some brief links that, oh, the Flyers could be interested in Zegers if he is moved, and it's like, okay, but there was not really any rumblings that it was close or that they were in talks until it happened. So,
it would look really bad on Anaheim because the reason they made this trade, Michael, is that they're linked to Mitch Marner and they had to clear salary off of their,
mhm,
off of their team to add a large contract like Mitch Marner and Trevor Zegras is making I believe he is scheduled to make $5.75 million. And they didn't retain any of the salary. So
yeah,
that was a big reason why the Flyers didn't give up a whole lot.
yeah, and also like they they said that he's going to have an opportunity to play center there, and it's like I guess they didn't want him to play center for them in the long run. So that's another issue that feels like when you're a team that isn't good like Anaheim, I don't think I'd be getting too picky about it, you know? It's not like Natchez in Carolina where they're a good team and they're trying to build out and fill out the roster and you have a guy who's trying to move a position to play center or some whatever. When you're Anaheim and you're a bottom feeder and one of your more talented players is like, I want to play center, feel like you just kind of let him do it. I don't know, but regardless,
I mean, they haven't been a relevant team in a very long time. Like you notice the hockey right now, I think it was losing a little bit of parity because I feel like all the bad teams are just always bad.
they've been bad for a little while now. Yeah, no, for sure. But
So yeah, let's
yeah,
talk
I
about
thought that was a great
let's
trade,
talk
and there's a couple.
let's talk about last night.
Yeah,
So I don't know about you, man. I listen, man. You're not going to appease everybody, and I'm not trying to be like a homer, but how could you be pissed about the Flyers getting who you look at a lot of hockey analytics like sites where they're grading these prospects. A person who was considered the second or third best overall player in the draft at 6.
yeah. I mean, obviously, James Hagens was the popular name that people wanted, and a lot of that stems just from the fact that he's a center. And like, I think the consensus from what I gathered and looking on, social media and what people are saying about the draft selection of winger Porter Martone is that no one is upset that they took Martone. Everyone, I think, is pretty happy that Martone is on the team because, like you said, was a top at least like 4 prospect in this entire draft, and you did get him at 6. He definitely has some size to him, which is something that this team could use, and he's extremely skilled and talented, like similar levels to what you get from Michkov and what you get from Zegras. And I don't think people are upset with that pick. I think if people are any sort of upset, it's just like, man, there was a really good center sitting there in James Hagens, and that could have been the selection. But I think overall, no one's going to complain about taking Martone as one of the top, skilled prospects in the entire entry draft.
I believe Penn State is still trying to get Porter Martone to commit to go play with McKenna this year at Penn State.
I mean, I simply would like Martone to go play for the Flyers, but that's just me. Um, Yeah, so their next selection has a little bit more of a head scratching, but to stick with just Martone for now, the board kind of broke their way where they did have their choice between Martone and Hagens, with the Predators taking Brady Martin at 5. I think that was the consensus guy that no one wanted the Flyers to take. Don't take the checking center, Brady Martin. Um, they've just had checking centers for feels like ever. They need some skill and talent, and they took Martone, who's a very
Yeah,
skilled and
Brady
talented
Martin is
player.
kind of like I would say he's like Sam Bennett. I think because Sam Bennett had a monster postseason, the
Yeah,
Nashville Predators saw that and they're like, and he just by the way re-signed with Florida for 8 years, $8 million a year, which is
yeah,
feels like a massive overpay by Florida.
yeah. Can't help but agree right there. But Porter
But
Martone compares himself to Corey Perry, Matthew Tkachuk as well. Two players that I think the Flyers would love to have. I mean, Corey Perry, one of the more prolific goal scorers the last 20 years since he's been in the league. I didn't realize he's been in the league for 20 years. I knew he was on those Anaheim teams, but I thought it was more like 15, not 20. But regardless, he's been one of the top goal scorers in hockey since. He's been on a lot of really good teams. He's made a lot of deep playoff runs as a player, and you know, when a skill set of a guy that you draft is similar to that, I can't complain even a little bit. And he's got that size, so I'm hoping he brings some tenacity with that size as well, similar to that of Kachuk. So yeah, I think that's a great move. Listen, they might not play a lick of defense if a line is Martone, Zegras, and Michkov. I don't think, but I don't care. I don't care if they don't play a lot of defense. I need goals. This team
well,
struggled to score goals
so and
forever.
then
So
And then the Flyers with their next draft pick, which I think is
Definitely a little more
fresh,
controversial.
definitely controversial. But the more I read about it, I'm noticing a trend with Danny these last two drafts. So, who do we all want at when they jump up to 12? Eklund? Just keep getting these
I mean,
talented forwards. Is that what we wanted? I was down for that.
like, I think that, um,
That Paul Chalmers tweet, that's hilarious.
yeah, that was
Sorry.
funny. Yeah. I think that, like, how do I don't know if they wanted, I don't know if fans were like super into wanting anybody once it got to that point. Like, I think a lot of the guys that were intriguing, super intriguing, all got picked between like, I guess 7 and 10, really, 7 to 11, and the
I think
Flyers
fans would if McQueen fell out of the top 10, that's the guy to
to go
just
get McQueen. Yeah.
jump up and just
So,
take that risk.
yeah. So Nesbitt, I'm seeing pretty mixed reviews on from fans, from analysts. I see some people had him ranked as high as 12. I see some people had him ranked as low as like 25. And the Flyers seem to believe that he was not going to make it past, I think, 15. And they wanted to jump up. And if that's a guy that they want to get their guy. I fear that he's just huge and they wanted size. And you when some guys cons are just like skating and like speed or whatever, it's like it's a little worrisome, I have to say.
Yeah, so what I read about Jack Nesbitt was
Hmm.
that he was like the most improved player in the OHL this past year. Like he made this massive jump. And I think sort of like when they took Jet Luchenko, kind of like the
Hmm.
same like kind of thought process of
Very
this
different players.
very different players. You're right, but I think their risk is like this guy took a massive leap, and he's just like he has these tools, obviously outside of the skating, but like I feel like at the same time they're gonna you know work on that. I suppose
That's definitely more of a project.
right.
Nesbitt.
Definitely not someone that's gonna be on the club in 2 years,
I
but
will say, like, a lot of Flyers fans like, oh, he could have been there at 22, or maybe he would only had to move up a few spots. And it's like, here's my thing. This was pretty renowned as a weak draft, like a not a very deep draft class, all that sort of stuff. Because they took the kid at 12 versus taking him at maybe 15 or 18 or hell, even 22. Does giving up the 31st overall pick in a weak draft class really make you feel so much worse about yourself? Like, would everyone have felt better if they only moved up 5 spots instead of 10 spots
well,
with
Michael, I bet
31?
you Nets fans are wishing they used some of those 5 first round picks to jump up to get an actual player.
That's exactly my point. So, like, I think that a lot of the complaining about it is like, if you want to complain about it, I think it just has to be about the player. If you want to complain, oh, the fact that they traded up just to take this guy, and it's like, I feel like that's just semantics. Like, if they were going to move up to take him, does it really matter how far they actually moved up to take him? Who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a weak draft class. It's all about like the Flyers conversations in their war room. Like, would Briere and co feel better about themselves if they only had to jump up 5 spots or 4 spots to take Nesbitt as opposed to 10? I just don't think that totally matters. I feel like if you're going to complain about the player. Don't complain about the fact that they traded one of their 3 first-round picks and swapped to move up 10 spots. I don't know.
I wonder if they had that trade worked out before Anaheim took McQueen.
I feel like Pittsburgh had to have had a certain list of guys that they wanted to take. And if that was all taken away, they're like, you know what, let's move back. They're not in any rush to get better as a team for sure.
I wonder. Apparently, I think the Flyers would have probably wanted to move up to 9 to jump ahead of the Ducks to get McQueen, but I think the Sabres were so committed to taking Risto Jr.
I think it was one of those things where I don't think Buffalo wanted to drop all the way back to 22. Like maybe if Buffalo could have somehow worked their way to pick at 12, I think they might have been a little more inclined to do that. But yeah,
I think we're
regardless.
going to see the Flyers make another trade today. Maybe not necessarily move up. I wouldn't be surprised if they swap one of these seconds and possibly Bobby Brink for maybe a center, maybe a blue liner.
Yeah, I think we could see an active trade that nets them a player today. I my dream at this point, like trading away Bobby Brink. Like I like Brink, but you do have a surplus of guys like him. So if you can get something that's a bit of a better fit for him, I think I'd be pretty happy. Um, by any means necessary, if you could get Owen Tippett off the team, I'd be pretty happy. So there's a couple trades that they could make that I'd be like, you know what, great job, almost uh, automatically. So we will see. There's still a lot of NHL draft left, but so far the Flyers have made some very intriguing moves in the past week, and I think their team has certainly improved because of it.
Okay. So speaking of drafts, we're going to move on to the NBA draft.
Let's start with the finals because we didn't actually wrap up the finals
Oh,
since then. So I think we left off before. Was it before Game 6? I think is where we left off.
I think so.
Um, so Game 6 was obviously a Pacers uh, shellacking. It was one of those games where the Thunder in their minds were like, "Oh, we got two chances to win one. We'll take our chance on our home court," which that's can be a very, very dangerous game to play. There's only been there's been three teams in the last like 25 years to have won Game 6 trailing 3-2 in the finals, and all three of those teams had ended up winning said finals. It was the 2013 Miami Heat, the 2013 Miami Heat, the 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think one of the maybe the and the 2010 Lakers that beat the Celtics. So all three times they'd won the finals. The Pacers did it too, and it was like, oh, and especially when it's like when you win a close game, it's just like okay, but when you really blow them out and they're not even, it's like they didn't even show up. That can really be a vibe shift in the series, and not for nothing, John. I think it was a vibe shift in Game 7 in the start. Halliburton knocked down three threes early in the first quarter. Was looking like he might have some crazy 35 plus point performance in a Game 7 on the road to cap off what would have been a beautiful playoff run for him, for the city of Indianapolis, all that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, his Achilles pops. And that just sucks. Like that was truly, like if I was a Pacers fan, if I was an Indiana sports fan, you grow up like your whole life is basketball. Like that's, Indiana's a basketball state, the Hoosiers, the whole nine, but like the Hoosiers haven't been good in however long. Your football team had like one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, but you certainly underachieved with him where you only won one like crummy Super Bowl against the Bears. Your franchise quarterback that you really like, if someone my age really remembers, just retired at age 29 because of injuries and not protecting him. Like I'd be so distraught about essentially everything sports related. The Pacers all the time, my entire life, are always really good, but not good enough. Paul George losing in Game 7 of the conference finals to LeBron like multiple times. Uh, last year getting swept in the conference finals after everyone's calling you lucky, 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 all this sort of stuff. Everything, all of it. Reggie Miller growing up hearing stories about how he could never get it done. And it all comes down to a Game 7, and it's like, oh my God, here we go. And it's looking so good, and then the life just gets absolutely sucked out of you when you see Halliburton go down, and his Achilles popped. And that's just kind of how it felt. They hung around in the first half, but TJ, it even felt like some pressure got to him, and some pressure got to some other guys as well. And once halftime finished, the Thunder were really able to just kind of play their normal game, be suffocating on defense, force a lot of turnovers, especially in that fourth quarter, and they just kind of ended up blowing him out, sort of. It was tough because it's one of those like, man, if Halliburton was healthy, who knows what could have happened the rest of that game, and you'll just never know, and that sucks, you know.
Yeah. Um yeah, dude, like we complain about Philly sports being painful, but we have the Eagles at least, and like, dude, like I like what's the equivalent to that? Dude, imagine if like in 2022 when the Phillies played the Astros, let's say they forced a game 7 and then Bryce's like first at bat, he blows his knee out. They lose like 7-4. Like how
Yeah.
we would be, dude, people would not be able to mentally handle that here, I don't think.
No, no. It's just like a baseball equivalent's pretty brutal. Imagine the Super Bowl this year. Jalen went down, and we're watching Kenny Pickett like blow, and it's like, oh my god, and it's like a close game because the defense is
I
still
mean,
playing
everyone's gonna
really
be like
well.
Chiefs devil magic.
Chiefs, yes, exactly.
Chiefs
Like,
so lucky.
and like that would have been the conversation, and I'm just like, I don't even care. I'm just so like,
Because that's what
we'd
people
be
are talking about
broken.
this
We'd be
Thunder team,
broken.
man. They're like that this Thunder team only played teams that were injured or they had
And I
something to
think that's
prevent
a
them.
I think that's an NBA rooted problem because someone like jokingly did it, but like they went backwards, and it was like every finals has an asterisk because there's always been injury. Like, and it's true because it does feel like the last bunch of NBA finals, or yeah, NBA champions have been, there's been some just key injuries that have really played a factor into getting to where we're at. And
Well,
everyone's
like
like, last real ring was
in
Dirk.
all honesty, though, dude, like if you look at football, do people bitch? Were people bitching about how, like, oh, the Bills are so lucky that Zay Flowers wasn't playing for the Ravens?
Right, like
No,
in
no
the
one talked
moment.
about that.
Yeah, no. In the moment, it's like a storyline, but it's never like, it's never a top thing. And I think that's just a basketball thing. When you have such little guys on the court, and one of the stars is just yoinked out of the game, that impact is a lot more. It's a lot easier to see, I guess.
Yeah, dude. Imagine like I don't know, man. Steph Curry
I
in
mean,
like
look
the
at the
Astros
2019
gets hurt.
finals, John. Like Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant went out with like career-altering injuries, like in the finals against the Raptors. So it's there's always
Yeah,
something.
and
There
everyone's
truly
like,
is,
"Oh my God, Kawhi's so
and
good."
it's
Kawhi.
great. But that Warriors team was destroyed physically, and it's like, I think that's just an NBA
Well,
problem
dude,
where I
look at
think,
all the times the Sixers when they lose these like playoff series. It's like
yeah,
Embiid
Embiid's
has
half
Bell's
walk.
palsy.
Yeah,
Embiid's got a bad knee. He's
Embiid's
powering
got like a
through it.
torn knee that he's just playing on because he can, and it's like, that's an NBA problem. I think the to go on, I guess, a little rant, the 65 game minimum rule, which was essentially the anti Joel Embiid rule, was so bad for the sport because you get players that are really, not that it's like, oh, they're gonna only play 65 games and they want to only play 60, whatever, but it's like you get guys playing through a little more things than I think people want to. And I just think that the NBA product is not a bad product. It's just not. Like, we watched these playoffs and they were very entertaining. There were good games throughout the entire playoff run, both in the East and the West. It was great. The problem is you, like we say, the regular season has a lot of meaningless games, meaningless feeling games. Granted, every game, sure, but it's just over this course of it, people are like, I mean, this is a random game in December. Who cares if Embiid sits? Who cares if Shea Gilgeous-Alexander sits? Who cares if Halliburton's like? And it's true because who cares if they sit for a game? It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's better to have them sit a game and ensure that they're healthy than to play every game, that sort of thing. So there's a really easy fix. You shave the schedule down. Like, whether it's you start by taking away 10 games or 12 games,
Get rid of this in-season tournament. Kill it.
like
Kill it.
you're forcing excitement around regular
Well, that's
season
the whole
games
point of
when
the
I think
in-season tournament. They're forcing these teams to play their players in this
yeah, because they
in
want
like
excitement. So
December. In like
yes.
December, Michael.
So I think their best
Stupid.
bet is that realize that the NBA product isn't bad. It's just at its best when
It's oversaturated.
yes, I think you need if you shorten the
They would
amount of
never do
regular
that,
season
Michael.
games.
Unfortunately, that's the problem because then the
I
owners
think
are going to want the players to take less money, and the
I think
players
it's
won't
something
agree to that.
I think it's something that, we talk about ratings and stuff. I think ratings could see a pretty big jump if they played less regular season games because they would just feel more important. And it's like less games. You could keep some longer gaps between games so you don't have, like, you shouldn't have back to backs, all that sort of stuff. And it just, you're gonna keep these guys healthy, Like we had 7 Achilles tears in the playoffs alone, or this season alone. What was it, like 5 in the playoffs? Something ridiculous. Like you had Tatum, Halliburton, and Damian Lillard all go down with Achilles tears in the playoffs this year, and that's a lot of that is just because of what they had a calf strain that they were playing through, and then the Achilles popped, and it's like a calf strain has very quickly in sports become like a no-go injury. You have a calf strain, I know it feels like you can run, I know it feels like you can jump, I know it feels like you can play fine, but the risk that gets like magnified intensely for tearing your Achilles, people aren't going to play with calf strains anymore until it's fully healed, and nor should they. So an injury like a calf strain, like any sort of strained injury, they're all very similar. It happens with like fatigue. It happens as your body's overworked. When you strain a muscle, it's because it's overworked. It's not like an awkward, non-contact knee injury that happens in football. No, those calf strains and stuff happen when your body's just being pushed, and removing some of the games in the regular season, it would just let these players be more
Well, yeah,
healthy
because
and
you have
get
the
you a
play,
better
you have the
playoff
play-in
product.
tournament. You have this like other this stupid in-season tournament.
Yeah.
You have like Olympics, like World Championships. I think a big problem, Michael, too, is you know you have these guys. You're gonna have like the Charles Barkleys and the Shaqs are gonna say that load management's BS, and if these guys played more games, they're going to be in better shape. Like I'm sorry, dude. If you pull up some of the physiques from guys from the 80s and 90s and
Hmm.
compared it to like the guys today, you're going to look at the guys from the 80s and 90s like these guys look like slobs. These guys don't look like athletes, you
No,
know?
and that's just the statement. Like the today's athlete is just infinitely better than even 10 years ago, and then especially 20 years ago, and especially 30 years. Like it just kind of keeps getting better and better and better.
I wonder. So here's the thing.
Like
Here's
you
I'm
look
going
at
to
all
go
the
the
time.
opposite, Michael. I'm going to go the opposite way on this. I
Mhm.
wonder if these teams are overtraining some of these guys. Like they're not getting proper rest because they're like, oh, we paid like this like athletic company to like help train our guys, and like because you look at like John Morant for example. He's so talented, Michael, but he's
Mhm.
always hurt. The guy could literally jump so high he could touch the top of the backboard, right?
It's it's really like I think
He's
that's
not
just
getting hurt
today's
because he's going out partying. He's probably getting hurt because he's being overtrained.
it's just I think that's just part of today's athlete. Like that could be honestly, John, what you said, that can be traced down all the way to the youth level now. Like you just look at the way athletes are being bred and the way they're being trained from like 8 years old, where they're doing, strength and conditioning coaches as like a fourth grader now. And it's just like, yeah, the body does get put through a lot to be today. And that's just because that's the
Yeah.
demand,
All right. Let before we're gonna move to
before we
the
get in the
draft, but
whole
we're gonna make
sports.
one last dig towards Adam Silver. One of the all-time dumbest comments or dumbest things I read was they're gonna ask AI to figure out what's causing these Achilles injuries. Yeah, at Grok, why are so many NBA players getting Achilles tears? Like what? What? What?
I mean, I just think that like why don't we ask some doctors? Like why
Because the
don't we
doctors are gonna. Because you know what a doctor's gonna say, Michael?
They need to play less.
Yes.
The doctor's going to say if someone has a calf strain, they should not play for like a month. And like that blows, but it's the truth. And the doctor's going to say, yeah, I mean, the increase in Achilles tear is nothing more than just the increased physical activity of these athletes in today's game. They're so much more athletic, they're so much more explosive, they're so much faster, and they, like you said, they jump higher. They jump harder, I guess you could. That's that explosiveness. So yeah, the only way to prevent Achilles tears is just to do that
Yeah,
less.
like dude, if you're a professional athlete, you're gonna be like, you know what? They're not robots. They're not gonna be like, I'm going to use 65% of
No,
my
exactly. It's like, oh,
ankle
when I'm
muscles to
when
go
I'm
after this
running,
rebound. Like,
yeah, when
no.
I'm trying a chase down block, I'm actually gonna not jump as high as I possibly can. Or, you know, when I'm trying to blow by a defender, I'm actually gonna go a little bit slower than I usually would to ensure that I don't push off too hard on my calf.
Well, dude,
Like it's just dumb.
Why has Brunson been hurt the last two postseasons? Because he's a little guy diving after loose
And he
balls,
plays
and he's like
45 minutes a game. Like it's
plays
just,
45 minutes a game. He's like throwing it. He's literally like a crash test dummy, throwing his body around, hunting for fouls. Like
yeah,
that's why he's getting hurt.
the easiest answer to fix the NBA, or at least to help it a lot, is to just cut down the regular season and go from there. Like they got to swallow their pride a little bit and realize, you know what, for the betterment of the product, if we play less games, I think we could just, I don't know, play less games. Maybe have a game 7 where the star player on the losing team doesn't rip their Achilles when they were potentially on their way to have one of their best games of the entire playoff run. I'm sorry. Like it was one of those days where he was looking like he wasn't going to miss very often. Like he had 3 threes in the first quarter. It was one of those days he could have had like 7 threes, and you blink and it's like Halliburton just had a 40 piece on the road in game 7 to win the NBA finals. Like unbelievable stuff. And it just was taken from us. We have no idea. So unfortunate, but since then, another weird decision that the NBA has is to have the NBA draft just 2 days after the finals concludes. That one of the more absurd things like ever. Like, what do you mean? Could you imagine having the draft in February, John, in the NFL draft on the Wednesday after the Super Bowl? You know how insane that would be? You don't even give these teams a chance to like decompress. And I get it. It's because there's a shorter off season.
It should have been in July.
Well, like it's one of those things that we haven't had like a game 7 in the finals in a while. So I don't think we realized how soon it was, because usually, let's say the finals ends in 5 or 6 games, you have like almost the whole week until the draft. Not that that's like a ton of time, but it's like it's a big break, where this was like, and the draft is on Wednesday, and it's like, dude, Jesus, it's Sunday. What do you mean the draft's on Wednesday? Like, yeah, I think and especially what's actually probably the dumbest thing the NBA does, or still does, is that the draft hat thing. Since trades aren't official until like July 6th, which is the new league year, the NBA players are putting on the hats of the team that traded away their pick when it's not actually them. You know what I'm saying? Like trades are done before the draft takes place. Say like the Rockets traded up to 10 with the Pelicans, just example. The guy that puts on the hat is putting on a Pelicans hat, even though the Rockets own that pick. And it's like the New Orleans Pelicans select. And it's like, well, they don't. They actually traded this pick away. Like someone said, as a Nuggets fan, I see this all the time because Donovan Mitchell got drafted and he put on a Nuggets hat, but the Nuggets traded away that pick to the Jazz like a month before the draft happened, or like whatever. You get what I'm saying? Like, so the NBA, because the trade isn't officially official yet, we have all these pictures of NBA players that are wearing hats for teams that didn't actually draft them, but because they originally owned the pick, it says that they picked them. And it's actually the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. It's so stupid.
Oh, that's really stupid. Yeah, I agree.
It's so dumb.
Like,
it's not like they draft him and then they trade him after the fact, where that happens a lot, like with the Mikal Bridges.
You want to know like how stupid that is and the fact they try to do nothing about it. In the NFL, I'm sure you're aware of this. Eli Manning was not drafted by the New York Giants. He was drafted by the San Diego Chargers. And there is
Mm-hmm.
like this super awkward picture of Eli Manning and Archie Manning next to him, looking like they look pissed off, and he's like forced. He's wearing a Charger hat, holding a Charger jersey.
It's
Like,
dumb. And granted, at the very least,
and then
that
the
was like
following year,
the
they
worst
changed
bad
so
of
you
it.
can't draft guys and trade them anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, you need to trade. Like Scott Van Pelt said, I'm going to scream about the hat situation. The league's too smart to have the moment for the kids to wait their whole life for a picture to be in the wrong hat. I'm not sure why you can't fix it. So, of the 31st round picks, 10 were traded shortly after they put on their team's original hat, including number 10, Kaman Malak, the Duke center from Houston to Phoenix, Cedric Coward at 11 from Portland to Memphis, and Derek Queen from Atlanta to New Orleans. Like, Derek Queen got drafted by the Pelicans. Like, however, the trade goes through, and since the trade didn't happen, so like he's wearing the freaking Hawks hat. And it's like he wasn't drafted by the Hawks; he was drafted by the Pelicans, and it's so stupid, so dumb.
Yeah,
Anyways,
let's just talk about. We're going to
God,
talk about. Let's just talk about the biggest draft day storyline, and then we'll talk about the Sixers pick. So Ace Bailey gets picked by the Utah Jazz, and Danny Ainge, former Sixer villain, is the GM of the
both
Jazz.
player and front office villain.
Yes, so you know Ace Bailey looks like he's being sent to Iran when he's being picked by the Utah Jazz. He looks
Yeah,
pissed, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. It does feel like it does feel like he's getting some pretty bad advice from whoever his like team is.
Well, I think he thought he was going to go like the Nets or something because they had
Because
five
he said he
first
didn't
round
want to go to
picks.
Utah. Like he gave a list of teams he wanted to go to, and it was Brooklyn, it was Washington, and it was uh, New Orleans. They were three teams that are bad, and
He would be the face of the franchise.
he would be the best player on the team, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to be the guy, and while Utah, he still can kind of be that guy. He just didn't want to go to Utah. And Danny Ainge said, I don't care. I'm taking you. And it looks like he's now going to finally get on a plane to Salt Lake City. He didn't initially get on the plane with Walter Clayton, their other first round draft selection. And it feels like his parents stepped in and were like, dude, go to Utah. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. It's a very messy situation, and I'm very grateful the Sixers aren't a part of it because he did not want to come here either. As like we talked about, he would not be a guy here. He would be like maybe the seventh guy here coming out of it, at the sixth at least. Like there's a bunch of guys already on the team that we trust to probably have the ball in their hands more than what we would with Ace
Yeah, like
Bailey.
Cameron Grimes, Justin Edwards,
Yeah, I
Yabusele,
mean, yeah, but that's also like your bench guy. That doesn't even talk about your stars, you know. So like, it's
EG, Maxi,
yeah,
Joel.
it's a lot of it's certainly frustrating. I think as just like it's weird. It's just a weird thing.
You know, to me is I can't hate on him so much because I see people Sixer fans crapping on him. Like we had Michkov fall to us, sort of similar, where he just did not want to go to like the Phoenix Coyotes
Mm-hmm.
or like the Anaheim Ducks, and we benefited from it. I think where it's a optically looks bad would have been like if he was picked by the Wizards and he's like, yeah, I'm so excited to go play for the Wizards, you know, and we're
Well,
like,
it's one of those. It's also like
and you're like, you know what, the Wizards got screwed again in the lottery. They at least got a guy who was a projected top 3 pick, you know.
it's also one of those things that it's like Michkov would have been number two in like He would have been number one in any draft that was not Connor Bedard. Like it
He would
was
have been
so
number one in this
obviously,
draft.
yeah, it was so obviously like Michkov is the second best talent that it was like he's letting all these teams fly. Very, whatever team gets him is going to be super lucky. It's not like Cooper Flagg was forcing his way somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Cooper Flagg was like, I really don't want to go to Dallas and
Bro,
San Antonio, not really. Like,
If Cooper Flag tried to force his way somewhere else, I guarantee you people would have been like, "Good for you, Cooper." The Mavs are an
yes,
absolute
honestly,
the
yeah,
Mavs are an
like
absolute like atrocity,
yes,
and screw Adam Silver for rigging the draft. Good for you.
yeah. I mean, so uh, like Ace Bailey, seemingly like a mess there. Happy the Sixers avoided that, and with that, the Sixers pick. So obviously, Flag went one. Obviously, Dylan Harper went two, and the Sixers took what is people calling the safe pick, the right pick, the smart pick, all of the above. VJ Edgecombe, guard from Baylor. I think it's a great fit. I've seen a lot of comps, and I think my favorite one that I've landed on is like there's a lot of players you can kind of take things from. You look at his game and what he's great at. He's extremely explosive. He is a very strong finisher at the rim. He's a pretty good catch and shoot 3-point player. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter off screens in transition. Where he struggles as a whole with his game is just pull up, jump shooting, shooting off the dribble as a whole. Like when he's dribbling the ball around, ISO style ball, his jump shooting is not very good. When he's dribbling, he's at his best when he gets downhill and gets to the rim. Where he's at his best shooting wise is when he's catching and shooting, open three, catching whatever. And for what the Sixers have, that works out pretty damn well. A little nice off-ball combo guard style of player. So I've seen Oladipo comps. I've seen Jimmy Butler comps, which is pretty interesting. And I think one of my more a comp that I think is easier to picture for a lot of fans is Derek White with more athleticism. We see how Derek White is a absolute pest defensively. Can knock down threes, open threes like pretty dominantly, and catch and shoot threes especially. But when Derek White has the ball in his hands, he's not really making a ton of things happen, just dribbling past people.
No, this is the type of no. This is the type that this is. I agree with you, Michael. Like with like great analysis, by the way. Um, listen, like the Sixers, like you just said, they needed this type of player. And like, look, man, I hate to say this because of Joel's knees. You kind of have to look at Maxey as the future of the franchise right now. And it's sort of like whatever you get from Joel for the next 4 to 5 years is going to be like,
Well, the Sixers are doing a really good job at building for the post Joel era. You know what I'm saying? Like Joel is going to be here for however long he's going to be here. And for however long he's here, you're going to be considered a championship contender. And they're doing a really good job at getting players that currently fit that window. Like, Edgecombe does fit the current window as what he does currently as a player. Great on-ball defender, hyper athletic finisher around the rim, and can knock down open threes. But it sets you up for the future. Look at Jared McCain, same sort of thing. Great scoring guard that can come off the bench or start and just be a lethal scorer on ball, off ball, all that sort of stuff. That's very helpful for a team looking for a playoff run. You see what the Pacers look like. You see what the Thunder look like, where those teams have just so many guards that just can keep coming in and putting together good minutes for you. All that helps in the current run, and all that helps for when Embiid inevitably retires and you have, a lot of guards that are ready to go, and you just kind of need to fill out your bigs role and maybe get a facilitator, and you're ready for the future too. So we've always heralded Daryl Morey for his drafting, and I think he had another pretty good draft. I wish he would have traded up in the second round, maybe into the first, to take Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's, but he ultimately just stayed where he was, and he took Broom from Auburn, SEC Player of the Year finalist, can knock down
Yeah,
the
it's a bit
three,
of a
great passer, not very athletic, I will say, but great passer.
It's like Nesbitt.
Yeah, not very athletic, good 3-point shooter, awful free throw shooter. But it's very clear that the Sixers the last few years been very, very conscious about drafting character. They're drafting players that are no longer like losers. Someone wrote an article. It was actually a pretty good blurb that I will read here. I don't know who wrote it, but I was just given a screenshot. I just can't stress this enough. I am thrilled that the Sixers appear to be moving toward a policy of no more losers. I've been around a long time now. I've watched Michael Carter Williams, who lacked self awareness and never improved at the things he needed to. I've invested hope into Nerlens Noel, who was late to everything, had terrible work habits, pushed off surgeries until the season began, and again, no self awareness. I was here when Jahlil Okafor fought fans and got in multiple other forms of legal trouble as he never improved at a single thing throughout his time in the league. I've seen Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, and James Harden all fall short of their potential here for things that were, to varying degrees of forgivability, the result of who they are as people. Hell, even Joel Embiid has disappointed us with his on-court demeanor and off-court habits at times, albeit obviously to a much lesser extent than the players mentioned before. And you could have thrown in a guy like Tobias Harris as well into that same sort of loser mold that doesn't
Yeah,
improve your
you know what's
game.
funny? You just mentioned about all those guys. Half of them were out of the league in 5 years, or
On their
like
way out.
look
Or,
at Harden and like in the playoffs this year, man. Like
inconsistent again.
people were talking up the Clippers, like, oh, the Clippers could knock off the Thunder. Like, what if James Harden goes on a heater, man? Look at Kawhi. Kawhi looks like he's kind of back. Kawhi's
Mm-hmm.
and what do they do?
Yeah.
Like it's like Ben Simmons. He's on the same team as Harden. Come on, man. Like that's exactly that's the thing. They're just mentally weak, and we're drafting guys who
So
are
they're
not
drafting
mentally weak.
I mean, you look at VJ Edgecombe. He says, "I'll do anything that this team wants me to do." You heard his he doubled, tripled down on it, on how much he hates to see people score, doesn't want to see people score. That's the type of mentality that I want from a guard that's going to play lockdown defense, where
Yeah, look at the
no
Thunder.
longer
They're trying to build like the Thunder
yeah, I mean, it's just
and the
no
Pacers,
longer
I guess.
when we play the Knicks, we don't have to put like Kelly Oubre on Jalen Brunson as our Brunson stopper. Like, here's Edgecombe, who's going to put you in so much more hell than anything we've had to offer the last few years. So, and Broomy from Auburn, also a very strong character guy, playing through injuries in the tournament, trying to give his all for his team. Again, lacks some athleticism, however, is a really good passer, and
Well, I feel like when these guys who were from like really good college programs that were really good, when they get taken, the guys that fall to the second round, they always find a way to stick around in the NBA.
mm-hmm.
Like when Brunson got picked in the second round, I remember reading about it, and people were like, Jalen Brunson should just go. Will never play in the NBA. He should just go to Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just like, and even
saying, bro.
look at
Man.
last year. Look at McCain, who all he wants to do is just be that's a high character, good person that wants to be great at basketball. A Dembona, high character, good person that he wants to be great at basketball. And it's just, I got to give him credit.
Very
It's
eagle-ish.
something. Yeah, like I was saying this to Nick. I was like, we joke about it, but like, there's certainly some truth to it that like they. Drafting based on character, and if they get a guy that isn't really fitting the mold character-wise, getting them off the team like within a year. Look at Bryce Huff, was clearly not a fit character-wise, and he's off the team after a season that he barely played in. Like Hassan Reddick, as great as he was, once his character started to become an issue, off the team as soon as possible. Like certain guys are good enough that you can deal with it but you can only deal with it for so long. CJ
CJ,
Gardner
TJ.
Johnson, I'm looking at you. Exactly. So you look at all like Saquon, Jalen, Goddard, even AJ and Devontae, like all those guys, they're killers that are good people, like in the locker room and want to be great and want to get better. And that's something that is super important. And you're seeing the Sixers. It started kind of with Maxey. Like that's a kid that all he wanted to do was get better, and he's gotten better every year of his career. And it's been bleeding into their other draft picks. And I think that's it's just a good path to go down where all of a sudden post Joel doesn't look as dire as it once did. And you just hope that, especially in a year where the East is going to be wide open, like someone said, if Joel Embiid's got a 10% chance to stay healthy through a playoff run, it means the Sixers have a 10% chance to make the finals. And, you just got to take that chance. So,
Oh no, like if like Joel, they need to get him as close. Whatever his like 100, like obviously his 100% is going to be different than like Aiden Bona's like 100%, right?
yeah.
Like, dude, if like you could probably, as since you basically put Paul George in like shrink wrap since the start of like February,
All right.
I'm sure he's probably gonna be ready to probably start the season. You could probably let Joel heal, get back into shape, get him ready for like January.
It's one of those things where, like, you might not need Embiid to score 30 a game, at least not in the regular season. Like you can just, if you just get the best defensive version of Embiid as a great rim protector and, the best defensive version of Paul George as a long wing defender and let your guards really carry the load and the scoring wise, where Maxey can average close to 30 a game. And if Grimes is going to average like 18 a game and McCain's going to average like 18 a game. Like if those guys are going to carry the load scoring wise, and you look at Embiid and Embiid's only averaging like 23 points a game as opposed to 31 like he's been the last 6 years, like it's something that is probably worth it,
That's
at
gonna be
least
the
for
big
his
thing
health.
is the Sixers is basically telling Joel like we don't need you to do everything.
Yeah, like at least not in the regular season. Maybe in the playoffs we'll have to flip a switch and, not saying to never score 30, but it's going to be one of those things where if he does look pretty healthy, it's just going to be hard where you're watching him just kind of nail his mid range, and you're like, it's like in 2024 when we were watching, it's like, okay, Joel's going for 38 today, like not even, and you knew that in the first quarter, like you just knew in the first quarter he was going to drop close to 40, and he wouldn't play the fourth, and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but draft alone, Sixers perspective, I think Edgecombe was a really good pick. I think that's a great fit. Is going to be an absolute weapon defensively, and I think offensively has enough tools to be a very useful piece right now. And I think there's absolutely room for him to get better, like off the dribble scoring. So he can, if he wants to ascend into like an all-star caliber player, he needs to really improve that. And I think that we talk about character and work ethic. He certainly seems like a guy that's going to be
Well, yeah, I
trying to
think
put that
I,
work in.
I think both the Sixers and the Flyers are focused on. I think they want to get guys who high character guys that are constantly working on their games, as opposed to guys that are really like I don't know finished, I suppose, and they're just going to rest on their laurels. I don't know how to word that, but like you know,
Yeah, like it's just getting it's so important. Like especially in today's sports and stuff, how important character is and locker room, camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. So I think they nailed it with their two picks in terms of people. I still don't love the Broom pick. I think they could have just drafted a better player, perhaps a better player that'll translate better into the NBA. But like a lot of people are saying, I think everyone's nerves will be calm because he'll put up like 20 and 10 in a summer league game, and it'll
oh
look
yeah, he'll drop
pretty
like
good.
20 points in a summer league game.
Yeah, and it's like, oh,
People are gonna be like, the alternate like
mm-hmm,
capitalization text. Broom
mm-hmm.
can't jump very high.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like, bro, I'm old enough when the Sixers drafted Samuel Dallenberg because he was an athletic freak, and he had like some of the worst hands I've ever seen a basketball player have. Where if he's in the low block and he'll get a pass, you couldn't catch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It would just
Yeah.
ricochet off his hands,
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had pizza paddles for hands. So just because you want a guy because he's really athletic, but not very good actually at playing basketball, you know, like
Fleming was the guy I wanted a lot, though. Oh, I think it would have been a good fit. But they would have had to trade back into the first round to get him. And it seemed like Daryl wasn't content in doing that. So
or no one was really interested in moving back to the second
moving
round.
back like 5 spots. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sure. But anyways,
Yeah, so let's wrap up the show today. We're gonna talk Phillies. So all
a lot
right,
to
man.
talk about with the Phils.
Well, we had like 2 weeks of there's a lot that's happened. So listen, you and I have talked about this off show. The people that treat the Phillies like they're the Eagles, where if they lose a game, it's literally like the end of the world.
Yeah, they
Like,
lose a game and everyone wants Thompson to be like yelling at the players and breaking clipboards in the clubhouse, like
and look, if
ripping
you're
everyone out.
making daily content, like I hate to say this, baseball's not a very good sport to make
Sports
daily
talk
content
radio.
on because you're going to be overreacting over a 162 game schedule. And to be frank, like baseball is like drinking. This is the way I equate baseball, Michael. Consuming baseball, sports wise, consuming baseball is like consuming wine. You don't chug wine, you
No.
chug beer,
Yeah.
or, you
No,
know,
it's fair. Like, especially when you look at like talk radio, like daily sports talk radio, and we wonder why sometimes that they do these stupid segments in the summertime, and it's because they try to give themselves a break. Because if you did day in and day out, like, oh, Phillies game last night, we got to talk about it, and you break it down like they do an Eagles game on every Monday, it's gonna drive you insane. Like, you're going to go crazy talking about it when you put so much stock in every 162. Like, it's just a lot. So 2 weeks of Phillies baseball have gone by. Um, it was looking pretty good, and like when they went back home to play the Mets, took 2 of 3 against the Mets. Kind of felt like they dominated that series too. Like they were just they hit pretty well in all 3 games. Even the game they lost, they still hit fairly well. And then they go down to Houston and have letdown of all letdowns. They're one of like 9 teams to get swept while only allowing 5 runs
they
or
were the
less.
10th team. I
10th
did see the
team.
same stat.
So
Most
like that's
recently, it was the
pretty
2014 Minnesota Twins.
yeah, it's pretty remarkable stat. You got some of the 3 best pitching performances from like Wheeler, Sanchez, and Suarez have given all season. They were just dominant, and it was a shame because like Ranger, you felt like you had to push it because the bullpen is like so trustwise, and he makes one bad pitch and he gives up the homer and you lose because of it. And it's like that just sucks. Um, Wheeler gives up a run on an error and like dominates the rest of the way, but you give up like an insurance run and you lose, and that just sucks. And it's just frustrating, just frustrating. It feels like your best bet to beat the Phillies lineup is to just throw lefties. The right-handed hitters are really bad against left-handers this year. The only one that's like killing them is Sosa. Trey Turner's been like good. Castellanos has been okay against lefties, and then everyone else has been pretty putrid against left. Like all the other right-handed hitters have been pretty putrid against left-handed pitching. So feels like there's a solution there. Teams are just going to start throwing a bunch of lefties at the Phillies. I wouldn't be surprised if come playoff time and we're seeing
I wouldn't be
playoff
surprised. I
rosters
would
come
not be
out.
surprised if you see the New York Mets acquire like 3 lefty pitchers at the deadline,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because that's what I would do.
yeah, yeah. So I think that like we talked about a little bit pre-show. Um, Getting swept in Houston in June doesn't matter. Who cares? Not a big deal. Like it's just gonna happen
I
sometime.
think it's more concerning if you got swept by the Colorado Rockies, in my opinion.
Right. And it's like it's the way it looked. The way it looked was pretty egregious.
It
You were
was
swept.
frustrating because it was frustrating because like you're playing Houston, who's in first place in the American League West. Uh,
They're
they're up
doing it
on
without Jordan.
they're up on the Mariners, who have I think the American League MVP on their team, in my opinion. Cal Raleigh is the MVP. I think he is. You
Sure.
know, well,
I mean,
like
Judge
what?
is it's pretty
Like
inevitable, but
I know it's like Judge, but if we're like, okay, so like, what, we're gonna give
we'll
Judge
see. Like you're just gonna keep giving it to him.
I,
Yeah,
I
unfortunately.
guess you have to, right?
You kind of when it's that good, like yeah.
Well, I think with Cal Raleigh though, because he plays catcher
Oh,
and
and he's a great,
he's
he's
gonna
good
have
back
like the
there
greatest
too.
offensive season like ever by a catcher, and we're gonna be like, nah, typical Judge season.
Yeah, he's gonna and like yeah,
He's
and that's
playing
just
a
a
much more
shame.
difficult position though, Michael. Like Aaron Judge, I mean, what
He was hitting like
defensively?
what 360 with all the
Yeah,
homers and stuff.
this is kind of disgusting, bruh. Yeah,
He's really good, man. Like it just he's like
this is
he's putting
disgusting.
up steroid level stats, like steroid
Yeah,
era
but
level
does he have the?
stats.
But is Cal Raleigh hitting juice baseballs, Michael?
Um, Probably not. I would venture to say Cal Raleigh actually plays in like the worst home stadium to hit in all of baseball. Go look at some home and
That's
away
my
splits.
point. He's got a 5.5 WAR. What's Aaron Judge's WAR right now? Let's look that up. I'm on Fangraphs using their WAR, by
John,
the
you
way.
know what you're gonna see right now.
What am I gonna see? Like 7? Am I gonna see like 7? Is
Maybe
that
not
what
that
little?
high, but you're definitely gonna see it 6.
Uh,
What is it like
can I
6'2"?
be all right? So listen, with all due, okay, Michael,
He's just really good.
like, okay, this is when we gotta be like we gotta look at like game winning hits or like there's gotta be a metric like hits that contribute to wins. Like this is my point.
There is a metric, and
If like the Yankees are up 8-0 and Judge hits a home run, but then if like the Mariners are down like 4-2 and then Raleigh hits a 3-run nuke, like which one holds more value?
no, listen.
Like people shit on Dak Prescott for like garbage time stats. Why can't we apply that to baseball players?
Listen, I don't disagree with you. And I think I don't know. We'll see. We'll see come September. But regardless of all this, the Astros are in first in the West. They've been doing it without Jordan for a while.
Like the whole season.
Yeah. But
You got Jose Altuve playing left field, like low
and
having
and
low.
just having a down year, like Altuve's just having not a great year. Their pitching, like you said, has been very good. Their bullpen, they have like 4 really good lefties out of the bullpen, which is just unbelievable. Um, so all that being said, getting swept in Houston is not a big deal. Getting swept 4 times before kind of a big deal, I'd say. That kind of blows for sure. No individual sweep is really as annoying as like the Mets one was, but like you did get swept by the Pirates, you did get swept by the Brewers, like just some frustrating ones in there. All that being said, what just makes this Astros one frustrating is how well the starting pitching did. And just when everybody was really like, you know what, we got to fire Kevin Long, like the Phillies always do when it comes to that chatter, all of a sudden they put on like the greatest offensive performance you've ever
I think the
seen.
last time one of the Phillies to fire Kevin Long was like, I'm just sick of hearing about it. Just do it to shut people up.
Yeah, and then they start like hitting nukes all of a sudden. It's like, how are you going to fire the hitting coach? Just put up 14 runs in
It's
Atlanta.
funny, Michael. I literally went on this like tirade where like people were like, "All right, so like Darren D Gaetano, I forgot. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. I don't know if he even watches this show or not, but like he was like, the Phillies offense, blah blah blah. I was like, it starts with firing Kevin Long. I commented, I said like, hey man, look, I wasn't trying to be like a troll. I'm being like we're having discourse. I'm like, hey man,
Mm-hmm.
look, if the Phillies had like Kyle Tucker on this team and Bryce was healthy and they're hitting like this, then you know what? I'll say, you know what? They're definitely underachieving. So like, you know what? Maybe if do fire the hitting coach because the Phillies did that before when you had like Howard in his prime, Chase in his prime, Worth in his prime, Victorino Rollins, Chooch. Like you had like legit like all-star hitters that would hit for power, and they would like have like a 6 or 8 week cold stretch. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, you gotta send a message to them, like, because they're good. Is my point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're gonna fire what? You fire Kevin, what? Bryson Stott's gonna turn into Chase Utley, all of a
No,
sudden.
like it's truly if you really
Brandon
want to.
Marsh is gonna figure out how to hit lefties, which he's never done before.
Yeah. Shout out Marsh, man. He's been great,
And he's been
honestly,
playing
since
much,
the
and Marsh
IL.
is playing better. But like
Here's my thing. It's like if you really want to fire Kevin Long, like you really are like over it, over it, over it. That is an off-season thing. That is like maybe
you
it's a
have his
arm
replacement
thing.
already lined up.
You know how bad you'd have to be playing to like really feel like you need the shot in the arm by firing him versus if you actually want a philosophical hitting change, that's like an off-season thing. You're not going to get some philosophical hitting change done right now. And like you said, firing Kevin Long isn't going to all of a sudden make, Bryson Stott a better hitter. It's not all of a sudden going to make like Nick Castellanos a more consistent bat. Like if you look up, um, sorry, they're still eighth in walk rate, and they're still uh, eighth. They're also eighth in strikeout rate. Wow, like eighth best in both categories as an offense. So like, I think people just like to complain about the offense, and they move the goalposts pretty consistently on what they want it to look like. Like a few years ago, what was it? All they do is hit home runs. They can't do the small, but if they're not hitting home runs, they're not scoring anything. And all they do is swing for the fences. That's so frustrating. Oh. And then it's slowly, last year where they weren't hitting as many home runs and they actually were doing a little more passing of the baton. Like we see how they won in they hit a couple of runs to get back into a game in game 2 against the Mets, but then they ended up winning because they were hitting single, whatever. And then it turned into, oh, they just strike out too much. They're chasing chase rate, chase. And all of a sudden now they don't strike out as much. They strike out the 8th least in all of baseball, and they walk the 8th most in all of baseball and all that sort of stuff. And now people are complaining with oh, they don't hit for power. All they hit are singles. And it's like, oh, like everyone, and I get it. It's never going to be what
Well, my
is
point with
perfect.
them just being
Not
hitting
going to please
singles is
everybody.
because, my point of them just hitting singles is because Castellanos is a declining player. JT is a declining player. Bryson Stott has been, mid.
That's all he is. It's just what he
Alec
is.
Boehm is what he is too. It's sort of
Yes.
like, to me, it's if you fire Kevin Long, if I'm an up and coming hitting coach and Dave Dombrowski tells me I'm not going to add any more hitters to the lineup, I'm going to tell Dave Dombrowski, thanks, but no thanks, pal. I'm not taking this job so you can fire me because, frankly, you're just being stubborn with your hitters. Like if I would
Listen,
be like, you need to get rid of this guy, this guy, this guy. This guy needs to start doing this. And if they don't like my answer, I'm going to say like, all right, then, I'll go
no, yeah.
somewhere else.
So,
Goodbye.
like, you look at their offense, they have 3 great hitters on the team. They have Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Bryce
Trey
Harper.
Turner's having a career year.
He's
Well,
having
not
a great season.
maybe not a
Not
career
career.
year, but like
He's having a really
he's
damn
this
good
is like
season.
this is Nationals Dodgers straight turn. This is what you signed him
This
for.
is what you signed him for. Yeah. And Schwarber's having, he's probably having a career year, all
Yeah,
things
Kyle
considered.
Schwarber's gonna probably get $30 million a year. Potentially.
Jesus. Bryce Harper is still Bryce. And then you have like Bohm, who's like a good hitter. When he's on, it's good. When he's not on, it's terrible. And when he's on and what that looks like is still not what you would love from him, but it's like fine. Marsh, good hitter. I think that's just kind of it. Like he goes through slumps, he goes through hot stretches, but overall, I think you get a pretty good, even keeled hitter that isn't going to hit for a ton of power. He's going to go gap to gap, and it's going to look pretty good. Then you get to like Castellanos, who's like a fine hitter where he does a lot of his damage swinging at the first pitch, and it will always drive me insane, I guess, if I was fans of other teams playing against the Phillies, that anyone ever throws him a pitch in the strike zone. What pitch did he hit his 400-foot 3-run home run yesterday? A fastball, kind of right over the heart of the plate on the first pitch. You know he's going to swing at it. What the hell are you doing? So,
Well, it's because Bryce Elder sucks.
I mean, it's everybody, John. He hits like I, Nick Castellanos. I just saw the stats. He hits. Hold on. I just had it. Going into, I guess, 2 days ago, 25 of his 85 hits were on the first pitch, and on first pitch balls that he puts in play, he's hitting 455. That's absurdly great. That's fantastic. Since he's gotten here, he's swung at a lot more first pitches. I don't know what's gotten into him, but he has. And despite this, John, like we said, so we talk about how could pitchers, all he does is hit the first pitch. John, he sees first pitch in the zone 49.4% of the time. Half the time he's getting a pitch in the zone. Last year, he saw first pitches in the zone 57% of the time. And I get it. You're not going to just throw balls the first pitch just to do it. But it's, when he gets them, he really
Wouldn't
does some
any
damage on them.
pitching coach be able to tell whoever's on the mound, dude, if you throw this pitch like 8 inches off the plate, he's going to swing at it. Just get yourself a free strike.
I will say,
get your basically like it's like bingo. Get your free space, get your free strike, and then pitch from there.
It's a hard line to toe because when he is 1-0, he's better. So like it's if you're going to throw something out of the zone, you got to be sure that he swings at it. Regardless, all this to be said, he's a fine hitter and like.
Well,
not a good hitter.
You say he's a fine hitter. I'm gonna have to check you there a little bit. So, I have his baseball savant pulled up. Now, here's the thing. Though. This is the important thing, though. When I mention like the Phillies desperately need like an RBI guy, especially now that they're getting on base more often. I'm gonna share my screen here. Let's see here. Present. Share screen. All right. So when the Phillies signed Nick Castellanos, this is what they thought they were getting. Okay.
I mean,
this is what they thought they were getting. This is why
even show like go back to even like 2018 and then just hit the play button and we'll just see it change over time. Like see the play button on the right, yeah.
Oh.
2019, real nice. 2020, fantastic. You see those 4 blue things at the bottom though? Look how they stay blue. Oh my God. What the hell happened, John? Oh, not too bad. Those things are really blue though. That's pretty good. That's fine.
And but this is the problem is, and now you see him getting an attitude over it because, like, for him to be a good major league player, like he needs to be like the Reds version, where you're like, oh my God, he got picked off at first, but he had he's had 10 RBIs the last week. Like, who cares if he gets picked off at first because he runs like a caveman? Or, oh my God, like my 12-year-old son could have fielded that fly ball that went his way where he totally missed it. You're like,
yeah,
like this is like, that's kind of the thing is like, imagine if we got Kyle Schwarber and he's only hitting like 20, 25 home runs. You would be like, this guy blows.
I'd be heartbroken.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So like It's true. Like, listen, Castellanos is a fine hitter because we've tempered our expectations, honestly. Like 2022 is so bad that it's like, okay, we're just not getting what he used to be. And we're just gonna have to live with it. We want to talk about juice ball era guys like really benefiting from it.
He is a juice ball merchant.
He probably benefited really
Max
greatly.
Kepler. We'll talk about Max Kepler. Juice
Yeah.
ball merchant.
Yeah.
Like
So
literally. Oh, you want to pull him up? You want to pull
no,
him up?
I don't. I've already
Do you
looked
want to
at
look
it.
at that? Like
No.
literally, the Phillies. Like, okay. Do you ever see the movie The Dark Knight?
Sure.
Do you remember when the Joker near the end of the movie has like that giant stack of money and he pours half of pours gasoline on it and tosses a match and burns half of it?
Mm-hmm.
That is what the Phillies have done with Max Kepler. Because
Yeah,
they're paying him
probably.
10 mil, which in baseball economy right now, like I see the boomers are like, oh my God, they're paying him $10 million. Oh my God. Like, Mike Schmidt never earned 10, whatever. Like, it's stupid. Whatever. But
It is a 1-year deal.
But Michael, that was like okay, we're going to go into the next late apron of the luxury tax. We need to bring in someone, we can't give him like 35 million because it's going to cost us like 60 million to bring him in, like Bregman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, they're paying $18 million this year. 8 million in tax, 10 million in salary for Max Kepler.
Like Kepler, him complaining is really strange to me. It just is. I don't know. It just feels like time and place, and it feels like now is not the time and place to like complain about it. And I'll give Rob Thompson some credit when he said like, if you think in your mind that you're going to be thrown off because you're not playing every day, then like you're not going to be hitting well because of it, and that's something you need to figure out. Like, honestly, giving it back to him where it's like, listen, man, if you're gonna let your mind be like, oh, I'm not playing every day, I can't get into a rhythm, whatever. That's a mental thing that you got to work on. Make sure you're ready every day, whether you're in the lineup or not. So
yeah, because they batted him fifth last night, which people were like complaining why he wasn't like cut, but like
they're not cutting him because you think we have power problems. Not that he's been some prolific power hitter, but like he's got more home runs than a lot of guys on the team. And
yeah, he had two singles last night. Power phenom.
Listen, he's going to hit the ball harder than some other guys. I don't know how to say that word in German, but he's whatever. Like there's something I want to get to because we can complain about the lineup, we can complain about the frustrations of it all. Like Bryce will be back on Monday, and the lineup will just automatically get better. We always, no matter how good
he's feeling himself, he's going to be much better.
No matter how good we feel about the Phillies lineup, whenever Harper goes down, it always is like disgusting to look at, and I get sick, physically ill. I'm like, oh my God, it's so bad.
Yeah, if you took Ohtani off the Dodgers, I bet you people would be like, LOL, Dodgers are Ohtani merchants.
Right. So
Mookie has AIDS or something stupid, when he lost like 30 pounds because he was sick.
So, whatever. What was interesting is there was an article, a Jason Stark article that came out over the past week. It was actually prior to the Astros series, so it was really rough timing for the offense to be struggling in a series where Dombrowski said he likes where the lineup's at the moment. Point is that when asking about this current Phillies team and asking about the bullpen and stuff, he gave an answer where he just talked about the 2018 Red Sox, which he built as one of the best teams of the 21st century, one of the best teams in the history of the sport. Dominant regular season. They lost 3 games in the entire playoffs. It was dominant. All of it was quite dominant. Had MVP Mookie Betts. It was interesting. You look at their lineup. They had 4 like really, really good hitters in the regular season. And it was Mookie Betts who won the MVP. It was Xander Bogaerts, who was fantastic. It was Andrew Benintendi, who was really, really good. And JD Martinez was fantastic. And then You look at how they all did in the playoffs, and JD Martinez was great. The other three guys, OPS is below 700 for the entire playoffs. So, like, not great. But, Steve Pearce had an OPS in the playoffs over 1,000. Deadline acquisition, by the way.
World
So,
Series MVP.
yeah, so maybe Dombrowski needs to remember.
Koji Uehara was their closer.
Maybe no, it was Kimbrel, not that year.
Oh,
Uehara was 2013.
oh,
But maybe Dombrowski needs to remember that he acquired the World Series MVP at the deadline. Okay, regardless of all that, this was about the pitching, a lot of it, and how, if you asked Phillies fans, they would say you need two bullpen arms, at least two bullpen arms, two high-end bullpen arms, a closer and another one, like all this sort of stuff. And he asked Dombrowski, and he's going to say, I'll probably get one back-end guy. We'll figure out who that is, but I'll probably just get one. And you got to look at it from a bunch of different angles. Looking at it in the regular season, whether we're happy about this or not, we are going to get Jose Alvarado again in the regular season. He's going to be on the team for like the final month of the year. So what'll be good is that you can toe the line of using him in obviously important situations, but also pushing his arm a little bit where it's like, listen, I know he's not pitching in the playoffs. I don't need to save his arm for the next month in October. So maybe I'll be more inclined to use him more often so I can give Kerkering a little extra rest, so I can give Strahm a little extra rest, so I can give Tanner Banks a little extra rest, who's been pitching really well. So all that to be said, you have that little reinforcement for at least a chunk of the regular season. And then the more important one is that in the playoffs, you have a lot of starting pitching. We've talked about it at length. They have a lot of really good starting pitching. And all he really said was, I bet you Wheeler won't be the guy coming out of the bullpen. But think about the 2018 Red Sox. Who made the final outs in that series? Chris Sale came in out of the bullpen to finish the job. Nathan Eovaldi pitched multiple one-inning spots in the 2018 playoff run that were huge to finish some games, to get out of jams, to get through tough parts of the order. Eovaldi came in out of the bullpen and shut the stuff
oh,
down.
yes. I fully expect the Phillies, because Rangers most likely gone after this year. They will pitch him until his arm falls off, Michael.
Yeah, so you have Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, and even Taijuan Walker. As just those are like your starting
Yeah, I
pitchers.
gotta be honest with
Listen,
Taijuan. I feel like he's gonna be better. I don't think he's a good, like, we'll throw him in the 7th inning to try to get an inning. I think it's gonna be like I think his role
he's
right
a
now
mop-up
is
role. He's going to be a mop-up guy.
or mop up guy, or Abel's throwing 4 innings. We'll throw in Taijuan for the 5th and the 6th.
No, well, in the regular season, sure, yes. But when the playoffs roll around, you're going to have 8 guys as starting pitchers, like that are just going to be around, and you're going to have to make decisions on what you're going to do. I think pending on the lineup, like if you have a lefty heavy lineup, depending on how Nola looks, you might just not see Aaron Nola pitch in the playoffs, like, or for a series if it's a very lefty heavy lineup and he doesn't have his best stuff. Granted, I do think when Nola does come back, he is going to look a lot better. And I think that's more expectation than hope as well. I really think this rest is going to do him pretty well. But in the playoffs, I think Luzardo makes a lot of sense to come out of the bullpen. That's wicked stuff coming out of the bullpen. But also, you'll have an opportunity to probably start him a game. Ranger, probably the most comfortable out of the bullpen. So on his throw days, if he's got to come in and throw an inning out of the pen, we know he's already comfortable doing that. And we know he can do that. Christopher Sanchez, also wicked stuff potentially coming out of a bullpen. So I think there's
I
the
want to see
answers
them
to
get
fixing
I
the
want to see them get a
bullpen.
bullpen arm, and then maybe like another Tanner Banks type pitcher from like last year, just so you're not like, I don't know, having to throw Max Lazar in like a postseason game at some point, you know?
Sure. I think we're at a point where, though, they're definitely going to get one leverage bullpen arm. And that might just be it. Like, they might get a low-end guy, or they might just be like, we have so many starters, we're just going to be able to use them in the bullpen. The Red Sox, what was so crazy about them in 2018, they went an entire playoff run only using 11 pitchers. that is something insane to me. Like, how do you like 11 pitchers in an entire playoff run is pretty crazy. But I think that the Phillies obviously would not be having 11 pitchers. They'd be using like 13 of them like usual. So we will be seeing what they end up doing, but I do think that they trust a lot of their starters to come out of the bullpen and be effective that way.
I just, when we were talking about the Phillies pitching,
Mm-hmm.
I had a realization of why Kepler was so pissed about saying
Mm-hmm.
like he's not playing every day. I have a
Yeah.
feeling the reason why he's not going to play every day
Mm-hmm.
is because the Phillies, Otto Kemp has basically been playing every day for Bryce Harper while he's been out, right?
Yeah, they want Otto to, I think,
Play
the
left
goal
field
platoon in left field. Yeah.
with Kepler, and Kepler
Yeah.
doesn't want to do that. So, which I find odd because, like, come on, man, you signed basically below average starter money by MLB standards to go play left field on a team with aspirations of winning a World Series. What did you think was going to happen?
Especially when it's not like he's ripping the cover off the ball. Like,
Oh yeah, dude, if he's hitting like, if he's got an OPS of like 750 and they're like, we're gonna platoon you with Kemp, then I understand it being pissed.
yeah, OPS of like 750, 800, whatever. Then it's like,
Especially
sure.
if like Alec Boehm was like had an OPS of like 600, then he could be like, why isn't Kemp playing third? Boehm's
Right.
playing like crap,
So Kepler's got an OPS of like 680. And
which
it's
is what he
like,
was doing last year.
right. And he's shown stretches of
Yeah,
like,
I think
oh,
this is
you know,
so they what I would like if you watch like MLB Network, they
mm-hmm,
talk about guys when they don't, there are some guys are just the last to know that they're losing it,
mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, for sure.
and when they get
Yeah.
pulled aside, they're like they'll tell like their manager like, hey man, look, I'm just having a rough stretch, I'm gonna get better, and the manager has to just be like, you're not gonna get out of this, man.
Like, this is just you. Yeah. We'll
It's like Whit
see.
Merrifield.
Yeah. I think my dream would be to get some sort of impact bat that could play the outfield. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know who that is because, John, there's not many of them. I think, unfortunately, we're at such a point where even acquiring a platoon level bat in the outfield is going to cost you like so much more than you'd be willing to pay because it's a seller's market. There's not a lot of guys that are going to be available at the deadline. And I don't know if they'll be able to get an impact bat like this, like the fans want and stuff. And I'd love an impact bat. There's nothing more like a right-handed power hitting
Well, yeah,
guy would fix this
your
lineup.
quote unquote impact bat is like kind of like, could be like a guy that needs to bounce back, like a change of scenery, like Jarren Duran. Is the Red Sox going to trade Jarren Duran?
But like he's
Maybe.
not even a righty though. There's such a specific fit that I need kinda.
Yeah,
And
like
like
Josh Naylor's a lefty. Like
right.
you heard what Bryce said. Bryce said, "I'd be willing to move back to the outfield to help if we get a first baseman to help facilitate
And
that."
I don't know if the Phillies want to do that because especially with his wrist. Do you really want to put him out there with his wrist? I don't know.
Or are you going to DH
Eugenio Suarez.
and then what? Put Schwarbs back in the outfield?
Well, that's what it would be if you end up. Your choices are you're putting Schwarber back in the outfield or
Yeah,
you're
like
putting
is
Bryce
Cedric
back in the
Mullins, like
outfield.
really? How much better is Cedric Mullins than like
And
Max
who
Kepler or Marsh?
Like he's not better than
He's
Marsh.
not better than Marsh. That's the
Right.
point.
So like, there's an impact bat. Eugenio Suarez. That's a great one. What would you do with him? Would you DH him and put Schwarber in left? Maybe. Would you DH Bryce, put Schwarber in left and put Bowman first? Maybe. Like there's options, but none of it is like super enticing. I'm not dying to put Harper back in the outfield, and I certainly don't want to put Schwarber back in the
Yeah, like
outfield.
Luis Robert. Like, really, are we gonna like? This is a like
Like he's no more than a platoon bat at this point. He's doing great against lefties, but he's hitting putrid
yeah,
against
like Taylor
righties.
Ward looks cooked. Like
He Taylor
basically,
Ward does this every
like the
year.
Philly,
Like
this is what a Phillies trade deadline move would be. It would be like when the Mets got Jesse Winker. You're
yeah,
hoping when you trade for him, he's just going to magically get hot, and like that's
yes,
going to help your offense because that's what happened with the Mets, Michael. Right?
yep,
Like
yep.
if you look at the Dodgers, like they picked up Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman was on like a bad Cardinals team last year, right? But here's the thing: they're the Dodgers. They have this devil magic. Well, they'll just pick a struggling player up and you'll just magically turn around.
It was also like uh, you look at the Dodgers lineup; it was still super deep. Like it was still great, and they had their stars. So you trade for Tommy Edman, and you still have
Yeah, it's not
Otani,
like they're
Betts,
trading for a bat the
Freeman.
level of Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts.
No, or not even like the level of Teoscar
Like
Hernandez
Teoscar Hernandez,
or
excuse me.
Will Smith. Like, how many guys are on that team where it's like, all right, Edmund, we just traded for a guy who's like our seventh best hitter that we take a lot of pressure off of him. He can be loose. And now all of a sudden he's hitting incredibly. Or like any impact bat that we so desire for the Phillies to trade for would probably be your fourth or fifth best hitter on the team.
Yeah, like I'm right now. I'm on SportsIllustrated.com looking at all the trade deadline targets. Like realistically, it's going to be like Bednar for the Phillies, and then maybe like uh
It's going to be an Austin Hayes
Bob.
level bat. Like it's going to be a guy that isn't going to excite a ton of people and in theory is a really good fit for what we need, and you just hope it works out. Like Austin Hayes hit really well against left-handed pitching. It felt like a great fit. And then he had some kidney infection or whatever. And with the Reds this year, he was hitting really well, and then he's been hurt though a ton. So like I don't know.
Yeah, his
He's
body's
always hurt.
breaking down by this
He's
summer.
always hurt. So I don't know, John. It's hard, man. It's going to be hard. And listen, we still have like the end of the month to figure out for the team to figure out who's available. I'm sure some teams are going to get cold and will be more willing to
You're gonna
sell.
have to get creative. That's the thing. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
have to get really creative. Like you're gonna like I don't know, man. Like I don't know. Like what the with the Marlins like would the Marlins shop Kyle Stowers at the deadline? I mean, possibly because they're horribly run and should not exist anymore because they're an
There's
embarrassment to
actually
Major League Baseball. But like, are they going to do
there
that?
is
Like, probably not.
there is someone that the Marlins have that I'm drawing a blank currently. But there is something there. Dane Myers, 29-year-old 29-year-old right-handed hitter who is having like his first breakout season, just his third year in the league. 785 OPS, plays center field. Um, if you look at his splits for this season as well, he hits significantly better against left-handed. Like right-handed pitching, he's got 267, 319, 343 for a 661 OPS. Not great, John. But against lefties,
He is a lock to be
375,
traded.
375, 426, 589 for an 1016 OPS. Like
Here's the tricky
really,
part.
really
Here's the
good.
tricky part with getting him is this: they ripped off the Orioles like a million times. That they may now have the expectation with the Phillies if they want to trade for him. Because remember, even though
Well,
like
I mean, we've ripped off the Marlins twice pretty largely in the last, 6 years with JT for Sixto and now Luzardo for two garbage prospects like Kaba and drawing a blank on the other one, but I guess
yeah, but
that's the
remember
point.
they traded Lazardo away because of money. They didn't want to pay him.
I mean, they trade anybody away for any reason. So, like, a 29-year-old center fielder is not like some future piece that you should be really
The first
willing to
time he's
hold
ever
on
been
to.
good.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, if I'm the Phillies, maybe that's the
Well,
call
they're
I
gonna.
make.
I guess my point is they might want like Arun Escobar, or they
I don't
may
think I
want
can
Luke
do that.
Abel.
Don't think I could do that.
But that's what's they're gonna some
Can't they get
dumbass
like a
team.
Burkholder or like Dante Nori or something instead? Like I'd rather trade one of those guys.
Let me offer you a nice shiny Gabriel Rincones,
No,
and
maybe that's the one.
I
Listen,
can see maybe if you give him Seth Johnson, man. Like
maybe there. Listen, there's creativity moves that are somewhat there. It'll be interesting to see how much Dombrowski really wants to make it. Um,
I
but
mean,
I
Dane
think,
Myers would improve the team. I know, like that's the thing is
I mean,
like
they're going to trade for Dane Myers, and 90% of the fan base be like, "Who in the fuck is Dane Myers?" Like, no one's going to know who Dane Myers is.
we know who
Like,
Dane Myers is.
we know who Dane Myers is. A lot of people are not
Who
going to know who Dane
cares?
Myers is. I know.
It's called Google. Look it up. Good God, man! You're like, who is this guy? Like, God,
Yeah,
like, I
listen,
hate that.
John.
It's called
Trade for a
Google.
name. Trade for a name. No, I'm kidding. But listen, starting pitching can carry you very, very far. And this team has the best rotation in baseball. And it's really not close. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah, like
not.
the
There's a
Phillies being the
large
modern
gap.
day, like early 90s, 2000s Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, and like
Like
the 80s
never won
Royals,
anything.
like they put together like some absurd pitching rotations here. And we talk about every show. They're going to have to get their offense hot at the right time, and the bullpen's going to just need to not, just hope bend don't break. Bend don't break from the bullpen, and who knows? Your starting pitching can take you quite far in a playoff run. So we will be seeing. Last night was a great bounce back win. It was a good look from a veteran team that like seemingly was pissed off after a really bad series in Houston, and they took out all their frustrations. Hopefully, they can continue it. This is
Well,
a tough stretch of the schedule they're in. They're in a very tough stretch of the schedule that started with the Mets series, where they played 3 against the Mets, 3 in Houston. They got 3 in Atlanta. Then they come home to play 3 against San Diego. You get somewhat of a break against the Reds at home, but it depends, I guess, on who they're throwing because they have some nasty starters too. But then you go out west, which is always just horrifying. They got to go to San Francisco and San Diego, and
San
that's not fun.
Francisco, who let's see here. I haven't let's see. Let's look at the old San Francisco Giants playing much better ball. I
They
mean,
did just get swept by the Marlins, right?
maybe they should fire
Didn't
their
they?
hitting coach.
Like truly, it's that's what I'm saying, man. Does everyone freak the hell out? Like they
Remember
traded
when
for
the Rockies
Devers.
fired their manager, Michael, and we're like, what the heck is the point in that? Like,
Yeah, they traded for
they're playing
Devers.
much better baseball though, because like they
Are
have to
they?
win some games. They're not
They
going to lose every
traded
game.
they traded for Devers, lost 2 of 3 to the Guardians, won 2 of 3 against the Red Sox, and then they just got swept at home by the Marlins.
Yeah, it's Devers' fault, man. It's
That's what
Devers.
I'm saying. Like, people, I love baseball. Baseball would drive me crazy until the end of my days. But some people act like they've never heard of the sport for until now and like don't know how to
I
act.
think it's so. Let's just wrap up the show with this because you got to go. I
Mhm.
do think a big issue with baseball is social media. It's a big issue because, dude, back in the day, I'm telling you, when you were like when you were a child, when we would watch baseball, it would literally be like, I turn the game on, let's say the Phillies lose like 10-3. It's like, okay, that sucked ass. But
There's just games that
you're like,
you're
that
going to
sucked
lose
ass,
and
but all
suck.
right, maybe we'll get them tomorrow. And if they lose like 7 in a row, you turn on WIP, then it's like, all right, there's something wrong here. Like, maybe we got to move the lineup around, or oh, so and so just getting just literally obliterated out of the bullpen. Maybe you need to like bump them down or something like that. But look with the Phillies in particular, it was just like, you know, like, oh my god, like that Hamill start was so fun to watch, or like, oh yeah, we got so and so pitching. Now it's like we're kind of spoiled in a way with the pitching, where it's like, I remember like growing up when I was like your age. God, I sound so old. Um, but it was like the Phillies would trot out like I don't know, man, like
It was a bunch of
Vance
status
Worley,
guys. Yeah, it was a bunch
like
of old,
bums.
like yeah. So I do think a lot of people have been spoiled too. Eagles spoiling. A lot of people, like, if it's not what the Eagles look like, it's hell. Like, if they're not, the Eagles were 2-2, and granted, we were pretty freaking out at 2-2, pretty pissed off. But Eagles were 2-2, and then they essentially didn't lose the rest of the season. Like, they lost the one game, but it was so fake. They basically went undefeated after starting 2-2, and when the Phillies don't look unbeatable, they might as well, like, I don't know, they might as well line up everybody and just beat them all because they're terrible
If
and
they
they don't
re-sign
deserve to step on
Schwarber
a baseball
and
stadium.
if they re-sign Schwarber and sign Kyle Tucker, I do feel like it would be like a lot of that Phillies angst would kind of go down a little bit because like that's kind of the perfect guy. I know he's a left-handed batter, but we know he's a dog.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's a dog, and like frankly, like I don't know, get creative, get some more righties in here, I suppose. But,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, man. It is what it
Yeah.
is. But yeah, man. So next week's show, we're gonna do our last tier list. We're gonna do the uniforms, and then we're gonna get back to football. We're gonna preview each division. We're gonna start at the AFC, work our way all the way up to the NFC East, and then by the time we're done doing that, preseason will be over in football, bro.
Damn. Time does fly, man.
It
Time
does.
flies. It really
Anyway,
does.
thank you everybody for tuning in. We always appreciate you guys listening to us. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.